We have former state senator A.J. Griffin joining us. I think it's the first time she has been on the show since she left the state senate.
Oh, no.
No,
I've been on a few times, but it's been a little while.
It's
been a few years. It's been a few years.
Did you get mad at me?
No. I've been out 6 years. And it's probably just been, maybe 3 or 4 since I've been on, but it's been a little while.
It's interesting, yeah.
Nice being here. Just so we know, the studio looks exactly the same.
It does. Well, we did change. Don't look at that until we go to break. I keep that up there just for humor. When the politics gets too hard, I get up there and I laugh at that, and then I go right back in it. So,
boom, chicka.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
We keep that up for a reminder. But I always tape little things up that I keep for reminders of things like the number of Democrats registered in Pennsylvania in 2020 versus what they are today as the last time they counted. And then when they release their new numbers, I'll make a new print. And I do that for the swing states. So keeps me knowing it. And I feel very, very good about the Pennsylvania numbers. Right?
Yeah.
So what you're on to talk about today is it called Oklahoma United?
It is.
Okay, Oklahoma United. And it's about our primary process, which we've discussed on the show a couple of times in the last few weeks, because I have talked about when David Holt was a state senator, no Democrat ever filed for that seat. We have close primaries. Independents cannot vote in Republican primaries. Independents can vote in Democrat primaries, but not Republican primaries. So Democrats and independents didn't get to vote for their state senator for 12 straight years because no Democrat at that time would file in that.
Right. And that's not unique to that district.
No. And we have several districts, especially across rural Oklahoma. We don't even have Democrat candidates running. I need to count the races up from the House and the Senate where you have a Democrat and Republican. But of the 125 races this year, over 100 probably do not have a Democrat in.
Right. Well, and there are
districts. And they're aside the primaries.
And there are urban districts that is the other way.
Right.
There are no Republicans
we had Jason Dunnington, which you would call probably a classic liberal mainstream Democrat, who lost in a primary because primary turnout is so low. Republicans couldn't vote in that primary, obviously. And I think it was before they let independents vote in the primaries. It may have been the year they let them. They got beat by a far more progressive left candidate, because when you have these low turnout primaries, and I talk about August of 2022, open U.S. Senate seat, there's a runoff. State superintendent of schools, runoff. Ryan Walters won that 53-47 with a 15% turnout. If it would have been a 25% turnout from the primary, he probably loses that now. But 7.5% of Republicans at 15% can get you the Republican nomination, and a Republican almost can't lose statewide in Oklahoma, no matter what. The floor, 51.9% of registered voters are Republicans. You got to get a lot of Republicans to win statewide. So what's the project you guys are working?
Well, the project would be to put a petition forward and to work to put on the ballot in November of 2026 a state question, which would change Oklahoma's primary system to, it's not necessarily an open, there's lots of different names for ways to do this, but basically would put every candidate, regardless of their party, on the same ballot. The top two
in June.
On the
primary ballot.
Everybody's on there.
And
top 2 vote getters move to the general election in November.
Is that if no one gets 50%?
Yeah, it's top 2 vote getters would move to the
even if you get over 50%, top 2 go, or if it's over 50%?
They would not eliminate a general election.
Okay. All right.
There would still be a vote in November, because part of the goal too is, Judd, we're 50th in voter turnout in this country. Part of it is the fact that our voters are expected to go to the polls a lot, and very frequently when they go, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you just talked about why we don't have general elections in November. It's already decided in the primary in so many of the districts, and why in a runoff the voter turnout is so poor. They've just voted and now they're coming back to vote again in basically the same election. So one of the goals is to increase voter participation by allowing the voters that fund these elections to participate in the election.
I think those are things, and this is interesting, and you brought this to my attention, and I was unaware of it. Voters in 71 of Oklahoma's 77 counties will not vote for sheriff in November because the races will be decided in a partisan primary or at filing. So if all Republicans vote in the primaries and people are like, well, a Democrat could run. Well, there's a reason Democrats don't file. They can't possibly win. I'll give you Texas County, Oklahoma, for example. Do you know what the spread between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were between Texas County?
Oh gosh, I can only imagine.
93% to 7. Okay, no Democrat is ever going to file in Texas County. But if you're a Democrat, you're never getting to vote for your sheriff.
And it's important to know that in the state of Oklahoma, municipalities determine their own process. Now, they don't set their own election dates. They choose from a slate that the state provides. But county elections are dictated by the state process. Right. So they can't, even if a county wanted to change and open their primaries for offices that are really nonpartisan nature, like sheriff or county clerk, or my favorite, county assessor on a partisan ballot. Think about that for a little bit.
Right.
Your job is to assess the value of property, and you must have a closed primary system for that job when it has nothing to do with the qualifications of the job.
But you know what? It does happen. You will see people running in counties big enough to have funding in a county assessor race that are sending out positions on abortion or other base issues for primary voters that you have nothing to do with your job. A county assessor is never going to have a vote on abortion either way. So what's it matter?
So in those situations, it actually takes some of the politics out of what really should be non-political in nature. It's, are you qualified to do the job at hand that you're being elected to do? So, and it would change that process for those elections as well.
Yeah, and one of the arguments that I've heard, because I talked about this, like as soon as independents started being able to vote Democrat primaries, I said, Republicans need to do the same thing. If you vote for somebody in a primary, you could be more likely to vote for them in a general election. So if you're a Republican, like, we'll open it up to independents too, so Republican-leaning independents can vote. So they've already had a chance to vote for a Republican primary. Why would we want to take independents out of the process? But a lot of people think if you have it open primary, the Democrats are going to decide who the nominee is and the winners and things like that. And we have all the states here that are, and I'll let you give some of the great examples of states that have open primaries where you still see conservatives winning their primary.
Well, just about everyone, including Texas.
Texas,
I don't think anyone that would argue that Texas has turned blue, or that Missouri is probably even a better example because it's more comparable to the state in Oklahoma.
Or Arkansas.
In a rural nature, Arkansas also they've changed their process. Missouri continues to have Republican supermajorities. They continue to elect Republicans statewide, but their process now involves all the voters. So one of the things that we like to talk about is that an elected official that's elected to represent all of the voters, when you're selected by 50% of only those in your party, there's no way that you can necessarily be reflective of the entire electorate. So allowing the entire electorate to participate in the entire process, we will have not necessarily different types of elected officials. It's really not about who we're electing. It's about the voters.
Right.
And allowing disenfranchised voters to become more engaged in the process and to get what they're paying for.
Well,
these are taxpayers.
And this is Oklahoma, which is about as right as California is left. California has this system. Mm-hmm. Steve Garvey, who is not going to win the U.S. Senate seat in California, but it's the first time in, I think, 3 cycles that a Republican even made it to the U.S. Senate, because it's always 2 Democrats. There'll be more times than not in Oklahoma, you will end up with 2 Republicans probably at the top of the ticket if you have a statewide primary, regardless of who's voting.
I've heard people say, we need more people. Just register Republican so you can run for office. And I'm like, no, we really kind of need actual. We need elections that involve everyone, and the goal isn't to change who we're electing. The goal is to allow voters to have a say in all elections at all levels.
I don't know what a strong argument is against that. And I'll say this why. We had a statewide primary in June. We had 19.7% turnout of Republicans. So almost 81% of Republicans didn't bother to show up. And if there would not have been the 4th District congressional race that came out of nowhere where millions were spent, it probably would have been closer to 15% because 4th District had a much higher turnout than any of the other 4 congressional districts. So then you get back again. Okay, well, 7.5% of Republicans can decide in a safe Republican seat who's going to be the winner of the election.
And which is a clear indicator of why we're last in the country in voter turnout.
Yeah.
Is the rest of those voters are disenfranchised. They don't necessarily feel like their vote matters. It does matter. It matters a lot. And we want it to matter more because if you open up this process, I think we'll change, who's running, who's filing, how many people we get to go to the polls, which is important. Oklahomans get that. We want the government we deserve and that represents Oklahoma. That isn't about party. It's not necessarily about changing the makeup of the bodies. It is about engaging the voters.
Right. Because, a Senate seat right now has about 88,000 people in it. We had a runoff in Senate District 47, Kelly Hines and Jenny Smith, about 6,000 votes cast.
Yeah.
So you probably have about 38,000, 40,000 registered Republicans there with 6,000 vote cast. Yeah. That shows you how few people are participating now because we are 50th in the nation in actually getting people to vote, voting age, and registered voters. So in addition to petition process, I think you're going to see some support from both sides on this. I think current elected officials, because the current primary process is probably really reluctant to speak out on this. But I think a former Republican,
like myself,
like yourself,
like myself,
I think you could find a lot of former House Republicans and Senate Republicans that would tell you they would prefer this type of process because it's such a low turnout. You get into that runoff and you're going to base voters. People start going further right, trying to get those votes. And then you get up there, well, if you do those things, a lot of people in those districts, and you have a lot of other members that are in swing districts that are like, I don't want to vote on this bill. Like, I'm there to represent my district, and they're overwhelmingly opposed to this bill. Don't put this on the floor. But someone promised it trying to get to that 7.5% number, have went so far out, you can't go back. So then the people you made the promises to start asking you to file the bills.
So opposition to this movement will come from people who benefit from the current process. Right. And there are people who benefit from it. It is a lot less work for an elected official to appeal to 7.5% of the voters in their district than it is to appeal to a majority of the individual with as many varied opinions and ideas. And it's a lot more work to really do the job.
Because if we get 50% turnout in a presidential election, you got a whole lot more voters that are voting than in a closed primary runoff. And I guess when kids have just went back to school.
Right. Well, and that's for elected officials from both parties. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a hard blue urban district, it's pretty easy to appeal to that small minority of the electorate.
Yeah, you only need 1,200 votes sometimes to win that runoff.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to appeal to the others. But for those of us who love the best part of the job was constituent services and being able to listen to people's real concerns and take those real problems and issues and improvements that my constituents in Perry and Pawnee and Guthrie wanted to see. That was the part of the job I enjoyed, and I think that this allows. It also, when you get people involved as a voter, they have a vested interest in also communicating with their elected official. But if you're not voting, you don't even know who's on the ballot, you've never heard of these folks, you're not going to participate in the rest of the process either. So we're leaving a lot of voters, a lot of taxpayers unrepresented.
Well, and we had a Grady County commissioner earlier in this year, and it got some news because he got caught saying in a meeting that if I get a request or a letter and it's a registered Democrat, I don't even bother to respond because a Democrat can't win there. And your electorate is just Republican primary voters. And so that's not what representative government's supposed to be. When you elect, you're supposed to represent all your constituents.
Yeah.
Everybody. I mean, you call Stephanie Bice's office and you're a constituent, you have a problem. They don't ask your party registration or look it up or care.
Yeah.
They're there for constituent service. She's very good. They're very professional. But you do see people that aren't so professional. And that's not what government is. I do understand the fundamental argument of voter disenfranchisement when you say, okay, I may be a registered independent, but only Republicans ever file in my district, and I haven't voted for a state I haven't had a chance to vote for my state representative in 8 years, 10 years, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because you got seats that a Democrat has not filed in 6, 7, 8 elections.
Well, this process is designed for the voters to participate. And we in Oklahoma are very lucky that we have some of the best processes for voting. We have very secure elections. We have paper ballots that can be recounted in a recount. There's a high amount of integrity in the process.
We do independent audits all the time. I mean, every election we do independent audits as soon as they're over. Mm-hmm. We pick independent county, audit different races. They always come out exactly like they were. When I saw the person that came in third in the Tulsa runoff for mayor by like 800 votes file a recount, I'm like, I have done 6 or 7 recounts in Oklahoma. We got one overturned. It was a 4-vote race. It was Todd Thompson down to Ada. But that's back when you had to connect the arrows. And if you didn't connect it all the way, I had something to challenge. But once we went to the boxes where you just got ink in the box, we never flipped a vote. I'm like, I am never going to heading up a recount again under this process because it is a waste of my time.
We have it's easy to register. It's easy to change your registration if you need to. It's a very, very good process. That's not the problem. Yeah. The problem we have in Oklahoma is that we don't have enough people going to the polls because so frequently it just doesn't matter. It's already decided. And this is just a movement to hopefully flip that. I mean, we've got great elections. We need more Oklahomans participating in them because they pay for them. They fund them.
And the point is, what we're talking about, now there are metro seats that are blue seats that would allow Republicans and Independents to have a vote. But when we talk about candidates not even filing, there's some seats Republicans don't even bother filing in. I mean, it hasn't in years in Oklahoma and Tulsa County. But especially in rural seats all across the state of Oklahoma, where no Democrats are filing it. There is a legitimate voter disenfranchisement argument. I can't even vote for my state representative, even though it's 2 Republicans or 3 Republicans on the ballot. I can't even vote for one of the Republicans when it's only Republicans on the ballot.
Right.
So a Republican's going to win either way. It's just which Republican.
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot that feel like they have to win that really low turnout, those base active voters that in both sides, there's that small portion fringe that are the most likely to vote, but they are the fringe, but they can control the process in that situation. And my thing would be, do you want to nominate a Republican that couldn't get more votes that doesn't have any more appeal to their actual district?
70% of the state legislative races in Oklahoma will not appear on the November ballot.
Yeah.
70%.
Yeah. That's 125 races.
So it also, when you ask an Oklahoma voter, who's your state senator, who's your state representative, and they don't know, well, part of it is like they may have not even seen their name on a ballot ever.
No, yeah. And well, that's true. I mean, I know people, I won't call them out by name, I'm trying to give them components, but if you ran for the state house and won once, and you haven't had an opponent the last 3 elections, your name ID has fallen so low. Now, in rural Oklahoma, when they have 3 counties, they only have 1 state representative, people pretty much all know who their state representative is.
The person's doing their job.
Yeah, at the local cafe, at the local shop, they know who those people are. You can be a senator in Oklahoma City and go out to dinner, and nobody at the diner knows who you are.
Right.
And I do think that is still as well. No, we don't think a Democrat can win that seat. Nobody files against the incumbent in a primary. It's hard to beat in a primary. Sometimes you can win one election and you get 12 years.
Well, and Chad, you and we've been candidates, and so we know that the process also really benefits by a rich array of people simply putting their name on the line. And that's the other thing that we haven't talked about is, we have voters that are disenfranchised, but potential candidates are also definitely disenfranchised. We have seen drops in numbers of people filing. There was a bump after the teacher walkout. We saw a few more races that we had additional people file in those. Most of them on the Republican side in most of the state, and then some districts on the other side. But we're also seeing a decline in the people that are wanting to run, which isn't good.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be a robust, representative government system.
Well, from my business, I see it as a political consultant because I remember recruiting candidates in the early 2000s and compared to recruiting candidates now. The political environment has become so toxic. You have a lot of people that would be great legislators and great candidates. They're like, I don't need this in my life. Everything's pretty good. My business is good. My family's happy. This just seems like a pretty toxic process. I really want to be a part of it because we're living in a day where people feel like if they don't like something you did, you could be out to dinner with your family and they come start yelling at you while you're eating.
And I wouldn't say that is created by our primary process, but it is a contributing factor.
It's a contributing factor. You can't ever recruit it.
It has allowed the environment to really become kind of closed off. I mean, closed primaries close off the process to voters, to potential candidates, and so it reflects in what we see at the ballot box.
Yeah, and I mean, most of the closed primary states, literally besides Oklahoma, Florida, and Tennessee, I guess, or not Tennessee,
Kentucky. Kentucky's
can't read there yet. Just one thing. Those are really the only red states that have closed primary. If you look at the rest of them, they're the blue states up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
But I mean, the majority of the country, even the Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota. I mean, strong red states have open primaries.
It's really not a partisan issue. No. This is not a partisan issue. This is a representative government issue. Do we want representative government, regardless of what flavor that is? If we want representative government, we need to tweak our process so that it allows it to be more reflective of the populace.
I totally agree. Okay, tell people how they could learn more about this organization and.
Check out our website. There's information on the movement at ok-united.org. That's the organization that has been formed to raise money, because these things are not free, to raise money, and to just kind of get the word out that there are people that are interested of all types, both parties represented, lots of independents, Democrats, Republicans that are involved in the movement to collect the signatures and get this on the ballot. Now, of course, it does have to go before the voters, and so the voters would decide, and it's a state question, so it's nonpartisan, which I think is very interesting. We do that nonpartisan.
Yeah.
Obviously,
right.
State questions go before all the voters because that's an issue relevant to all the voters.
I actually believe it would pass if we put it on the ballot.
Yeah,
if it's on the ballot, I believe it would pass.
I believe it would pass too. In fact, this polls very high among the folks that we have started talking to, and as we educate individuals that this is not intended to diminish the value. Republican and Democrat parties are still going to play a role in the political system. You're still going to have a label. This doesn't mean you just have names without a party affiliation. We're keeping party affiliations, but we're going to allow all Oklahoma voters that fund these elections to participate in the entire process.
It's basically, and like you said, about 70% of our legislative seats would just mean everybody's choosing between two or three Republicans to see which two go to the final.
Yeah, possibly. In the urban areas, it might flip the other. It might be two Democrats.
It could be the same way, two Democrats. Thank you for joining us today, former Senator A.J. Griffin. I am Charlie Zangerson. If you'd like to join the conversation, 478-1520. Text any questions or comments to 405-478-1520. We'll be right back.
Yes. More Chad Alexander on Talk Radio's new generation, 1520. KOKC.
You just had AJ on, Griffin on, and I think you've heard me suggest open primaries a number of times, and I'm glad there's an organization trying to achieve that. Is there a way to get in touch with them without having email capabilities?
You go to their website, United, where they have information about and contact information and things like that. I don't know if they have a phone number yet. They've just got, yeah, they've just now gotten organized. This is for 2026. So they're trying this on about 2026. So they're just getting started, but they have a considerable backing in this group from both Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. Like I said, there are a lot of former Republican legislators. A lot in office won't say it now in the current system, probably, but there are a lot of former legislators. I can tell you that absolutely want to go to the system.
I think it gives every Oklahoman, regardless of registration or non-registration, as long as they're registered to vote, but don't have a party.
Yeah, I mean, outside of deep blue states in the Northeast, and it's not many actually of them, only Florida, Kentucky, Oklahoma, New Mexico, which is not a red state, Nevada, which is not, well, there's purple state, and Washington are the only closed primary states, or Oregon, excuse me, are only closed primary states. And so, I mean, you only have 6 states outside of the Northeast with closed primaries. Every other Republican state across the country has open primaries. I mean, Texas has open primaries. Are they any less conservative? Is Ted Cruz still not the senator? Did he get beaten in the primary? I mean, is Jordan Cornyn still a state senator? Is U.S. senator? Is their lieutenant governor? All their statewide elected officials are Republicans. There's a myth in Oklahoma that somehow liberals are going to take over. I mean, Democrats are 28% of registered voters in Oklahoma. Texas has much more Democrats than Oklahoma does. I don't. That is a scare tactic, but that isn't real when you look at it in practice. And when you look at the map, almost every state has open primaries. West Virginia does. Most Republican state in the country.
I think in a way, I could be wrong on this, but in a way, I think it's a methodology of the closed primary to try to keep a stranglehold on majority power. I could be wrong on it.
I don't think it's on majority power. Like I said, I don't think it's going to change parties. I think
no, it's in the closed primary thing.
No, the closed primary though, it's not that, because there are not enough. A Democrat can't win those seats, or in some of the urban, really blue seats, a Republican can't win. So no Democrats or Republican file. So you have Republicans in Oklahoma City who haven't been able to vote for their state representative candidate in 8 years either. It happens to both parties. It just depends on where you live.
But nonetheless, it is.
And they usually have 2 Democrats in the general election. There's usually not a Republican that makes a statewide ballot in California to the general election. They run the primary, but they don't make the general election. And so they end up choosing between 2 Democrats. In Oklahoma, you would probably see the same thing in statewide races. We'd be voting between 2 Republicans, even with open primaries.
Yeah. And just a quick aside, this is, of course, it was open to both Democrat and Republican, but the county sheriff election that's coming up again. My deciding factor in supporting the current Sheriff Johnson was based on interviews and policy standings. He was more supportive of Constitution, Bill of Rights system.
Percent voting for Tommy and Griffin. Percent support Sheriff Johnson. He's done a great job. I served with him in the jail trust. He's as professional and ethical as you can get.
And he's really turned the county sheriff's department operation around.
He has. He's done a phenomenal job as sheriff.
But I may probably had no real bearing on what we were discussing, but
I mean, that was the point AJ Griffin was making. In 71 of 77 counties, Democrats and Independents will not be able to participate in who their sheriff is.
But
I don't even know why that's a partisan race, honestly. The sheriff.
I think the open primary, they should have to state the qualifications, if any, why they're running, what they hope to accomplish, and then they should have to have public debate.
You got to get out there and tell people what you're for. I think that's the mistake the Harris campaign's making. Hey, Ben, appreciate your call. Yeah. You got it. All right, let's get a text on, Jake.
Rod, great job, AJ, from a fellow Guthriean.
Oh, nice. Good shout out to AJ.
Independent voters aren't disenfranchised by anyone other than themselves. They should register with a party, open primaries, or poison for our GOP.
Please explain to me how they're poison for the GOP. Are they poisoned for the GOP in Texas with all elected Republicans across the state? How about Louisiana that has a Republican governor? How about Arkansas that has Sarah Sanders as governor? Kansas, Missouri, Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Ohio. I mean, I'm naming red state after red state. South Dakota, North Dakota. What's poison about it for the GOP? Why has the GOP been poisoned in all those states? And I'd also like to know, are you a Trump supporter? Because if you're a Trump supporter, Trump won the nomination by dominating open primary states. The only states Ted Cruz won were closed primary states. So if you wanted Donald Trump to win that primary, if every state was closed primary, it probably goes to 50-50 that Ted Cruz is the nominee. Donald Trump wants to close primary states too, but Ted Cruz only state victories win closed primary states. Sorry to point that out. So explain to me how they're it's easy to say they're poison or toxic, but the facts do not bear that out if you look at all the states that have no primaries. Like I said, there's only 6 states outside the Northeast that have closed primaries. All our Republican deep red states. The only state really more Republican than Oklahoma is West Virginia. They have open primaries. You see the Democrats taking over up there? Yep. And do you want independents who aren't Republicans to join the party just to vote in primaries? To increase just the party number? It's up to you. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We got a couple other texts we'll get to. We'll get back from that. If you want to join us for our final segment, 478-1520, I am Chad Alexander, and this is The Ride.
Yes. To our resident expert on Oklahoma politics, Chad Alexander, on Talk Radio's New Generation, 1520, KOKC.
Welcome back to The Ride. I am Chad Alexander. Let's go straight to the text line. Jacob, what do you got over there?
Reynolds says, Chad and AJ Griffin just made my point. Welcome to the Oklahoma non-democracy. Sad.
I don't understand.
If you could, I don't know if we have time, but if you could clarify the point that we made for you.
Are they saying we're on the wrong side of democracy or we're on the right side?
That's the vibe I got.
Is it AJ made male primary a democracy? I think it can be taken either way. That's the problem with text. That's why I don't do business by text.
Yeah.
Some things get taken out of context and what you mean and what you say.
Yeah, tone. It's important.
I mean, that's why I pick up the phone and call people because things get lost in my sarcasm gets lost in translation and texts. So that happens to me all the time. I can't do this. New generation with a text all the time. Call me. We can text back and forth 30 minutes, or we can do a 5-minute phone conversation. Let's save ourselves 25 minutes and just talk. All right, what do you think?
The only thing that poisons elections is apathy and voter turnout by members of any party. If you think it's poison, get out and get your people to vote.
Yeah, I mean, 81% of Republicans didn't even care to put their vote in our primary process. The apathy is real, like I said. I don't know how it poisons anything when there's only 6 states west of the East Coast that don't have open primaries, and all the other super Republican states have open primaries, and hasn't hurt them at all. All right, what else do you have?